morning, everybody, or good evening. I don't know where you are. Either way, I'm glad you're here with me right now so we can talk about my new series, all about that tech pack. So, what are we talking about? The tech pack, obvi. But I really just kind of wanted to focus specifically on the sample request because there's a lot of videos out there that talk about tech packs and how to do one, what it looks like, but I don't think there's enough really kind of like setting you up for like some people say it's the scariest process, the actual sample request. So let's take a look at the most important things I do when I request my sample. Let's go. All right, so it's important to remember that your email is your first impression. What does that mean per se? So the factory is going to open your email and know immediately if you know your stuff or if you're going to need a lot of hand holding. So what are some things you're looking for? Does your email have sample requirements, size, quantity, colorways, that sort of thing? Does your email have silly questions in it? Silly questions, you say? What's a silly question? Well, let me explain to you. If you say maybe you send your email in March and you're asking for a product for sampling and production done by like May, the factory's going to laugh at your email and probably just toss it straight into the trash. Because anyone who understands manufacturing timelines knows that you're going to need like 4 to 6 weeks for a sample, and you're going to need another 6 weeks to maybe 3 months for manufacturing. So no, we can't cram the entire design process into 2 months. So your email again is your first impression. If you are not sure exactly what that should look like, I am going to be putting together a checklist for that and a free email template for how to get the factories to open and even respond to your email for your sample request. But for now, just know that it's important. Don't just fire off an email with all kinds of gobbledygook in there if you want your sample request to be taken seriously. Number 2, give them a working art file. What is a working art file? In just a second, I'm going to show you an example, but just remember that there is a difference between a JPEG and a vector art file. Vector art file formats come in many, many different formats, but just remember it has to be a working file that can be opened and manipulated in a design program like Illustrator or Photoshop or another equivalent design program. Let's take a look at what a vector art file needs to look like. It's also important to remember that vector art files don't just apply to like if you have a graphic or if you need something embroidered on your garment. It does obviously include that, but it's not only that. If you have neck labels, if you have hang tags, if you have a special poly bag printed with your logo on it, the factory is going to need a vector art file with size, color, and technique callouts in there somewhere. So make sure that you are supplying that for anything that you want custom made, custom printed, custom embroidered. It's going to need a vector art file. Next, let's consider how is the factory going to make your pattern. So if you're not familiar with a graded spec and construction notes, definitely do your research. Maybe go, try Fiverr or LinkedIn to find yourself a pattern maker, someone that can actually make you a pattern file and or a graded pattern or graded spec for the pattern room in the overseas factory. It also needs to have construction notes because we need to remember that someone's going to have to make a pattern for this to actually print, lay it on some fabric, cut it out so that you have, pattern pieces to sew, and someone's going to have to sew it. They need construction notes. They need some sort of a instruction manual on how you want it sewn. So there are ways to get around that, but the purpose of this particular video is how to get a factory to take you seriously. And if you come to the table with graded measurements and construction notes, that's just one more layer of confidence that the factory is going to build in your new partnership. Make it easy. So a tech pack, the graded spec, the vector file, those are the things that you must have. But here's something that you can do to make it even easier for the factory. If you have a sample already sewn up, or if you have something from your closet that you're using to design this based off of, If you have a fabric swatch on your desk or something that you are using to design this garment, you need to send it to the factory. And you need to anticipate that it's probably going to be mutilated and you may never see it again. So I'm going to, again, do a whole nother video on how to properly send a sourcing package to the factory. But just remember that whatever you have in your head or in your office, you need to send as much as possible so the factory isn't guessing. Because consider this example, and if you've seen any of my other videos, you know I love to use cake. But consider this example. You commission someone to do a wedding cake and you say, I want it to have gold on it. Well, what's stopping them from buying some like gold leaf or some like gold spray painted flowers from Joann's or Hobby Lobby and sticking that in there, when in your head the whole time you really wanting some gold drips or you're wanting some gold airbrush, but you didn't specify that. So it was left to interpretation and it was done wrong. If you have something, send it so that they don't have to guess, and then you are shaving time off your timeline, and in the end you're both happier. Next, determine your budget. That I find whenever I ask that question in my whenever I ask that question in my consultations, I get a lot of deer in headlight looks. Like, I don't know, shouldn't you be telling me? Well, not exactly. If you go to a fast food or just any chain restaurant and you order a burger straight off the menu exactly as it is, it's going to cost exactly what it says on the menu. But when you start adding things and taking things away and customizing that burger, it affects the cost. So that's one thing to remember. Also, you have to remember that you have to pay for shipping things to and from the factory. So if you assume that one package is minimum $150 just to send an envelope, upwards of $300 to send a box, and you need to send 2 packages, you might need to bank, $400 to $600 just for shipping costs. That doesn't even include the sample. If you're just doing one sample, samples on average are somewhere from $50 to $100, but if it's like a really crazy like parka sample, you might be charged $200 to $300 just for one sample. So think ahead that you're going to have all of these costs associated with just making your first sample, and set money aside just for that. Lastly, to really ensure your success, you need to make yourself available. You may work a 9-to-5 job and you may not actually be available from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. Actually, I don't know why anybody says 9 to 5. It's always 8 to 5. So if you are genuinely not available until 5 p.m., set that expectation with your factory and come up with a way that you are both on board with communicating to each other. Is it email? Is it a WhatsApp phone call in the evening? Is it WhatsApp messages on your lunch break? Either way, establish a channel of communication in a time that works best for you so that you're not leaving the factory with a bunch of open-ended questions. And why is that important? Several reasons. Number one, some factories, if they don't know what to do, they take your project, they put it to the back of the line, and they start working on things that they do have the information for. Other factories will do the worst scenario. They will actually just make your sample and they will make assumptions. They'll take this draw cord, they'll take this elastic, they'll just throw it on there and say, hey, it wasn't in your tech pack and you didn't respond to my email and we had to get it checked off. So I mean, like we all know that guy or that family member that will just throw something together and say, it's good enough. And they've already got your money at that point, so they don't care. And that's not always the case, but it's important to remember that if you are not available to answer these questions, you could get a mess back. So I use WhatsApp. I highly recommend that anybody that is working with overseas factories at least considers WhatsApp or WeChat, whatever works for you, but definitely have a way to communicate with your factory about your project. All right, so this may be a bit overwhelming for you, and that's okay. I've been doing this for 16 years, so this is just kind of a second nature to me. But to help you out, I have given you a sample request checklist that you can print out or just, do little checks in an Adobe PDF, whatever works for you. But click the link below and it'll take you to a landing page that will allow you to download this free sample request checklist. And yes, it's totally free. I'm not asking for anything in return. As I mentioned, or may have mentioned, in this video or previous videos, my goal is to make the design process easier, to demystify the design process. There's too many people that have the information and are just hoarding it to themselves, and they're not helping the startup brands figure it out. So that's kind of what it is that I want to do. If you are interested in taking your knowledge even deeper, I have a course for sale right now called the Tech Pack Mini Course. In this course, I go over the entire design process and I explain what is expected of you and what you need to take the time and maybe even financial investment into learning the design process. If you are a do-it-yourself brand owner and you don't know where to begin, allow me to help you. Head over to blackunicornmerch.com and check out some of our classes, and go ahead and sign up for that Tech Pack mini course to just, again, help strengthen you and help you really take that first step towards being that do-it-yourself brand owner. Or if you're not quite ready to take that step, you have more questions, I highly encourage that you go over to the Contact Us section, fill out a questionnaire, and let's just get on the phone together. I don't necessarily have to help you with the entire process from start to finish. Maybe you just need a tech pack and you really want to own the sourcing. Maybe you have a tech pack and you don't have a good factory. Whatever you need help with, I am here for you. I'm in your corner. Let's get this knocked out. Well, folks, that wraps the first video in our All About That Tech Pack series. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And until then, have a great day. Bye.